Hello and welcome back into another episode of The Hard Fowl. I'm your host, Pearson Fowler, and with me as always, from GamecockCentral.com, Collyn Taylor, here to talk about South Carolina's incredibly important, quite impressive 12-point home victory over the Mississippi State Bulldogs, 83-71, a game that South Carolina absolutely, unequivocally had to have, and they did. And it wasn't the easiest road to victory for South Carolina. They got up big early, and then they squandered almost every single ounce of that lead going into halftime. And then by the second half, things kind of evened out, and South Carolina, they didn't coast because, they only won by 12, and most of the time they were up by like 6 or something like that. But it felt comfortable, and South Carolina did it without getting a single spectacular performance, but a lot of good performances from a lot of different areas. And as much as we've talked about the strength of this team, the upside of this team being the depth, I think that was on display as much as we've seen all season long on Tuesday night.
I think you can say that this is probably the best they've played ever in SEC play. I mean, just in terms of, they've done this to worse teams than Mississippi State. So they've put together a complete performance against a really good basketball team. Mm-hmm. So that was huge. And they played really well doing it. And the fact that they went on a 26-2 run or a 20-0 run. So they got, Lawson only had 12 on 3 of 7. Couisnard only had 8. Kotsar had 20 on 22 shots. This wasn't like a Jair Bolden going off for 19 or whatever it was against Virginia, 10 of 10 from the field. Mm-hmm. This was just guys getting good looks, knocking out some of them, and playing really good defense.
The same thing that has held Carolina back at times, and I think realistically does put a cap on how far this team can go. There's still a good chance they don't even make the NCAA tournament. They'll still make the NIT. But whatever the ceiling of this team is, it is capped by the fact that they don't have that one guy. We thought it was going to be A.J. Lawson. It hasn't been A.J. Lawson. It still could be next year. I think the ship has sailed on him being that guy this year, obviously. Jermaine Couisnard is somebody in the future that could certainly be that guy. There are potentials for that guy to emerge on this team, but it hasn't happened yet this year. So that's the weakness. That's what hampers the ceiling of this team. But the flip side of that is, in a game like we saw on Tuesday, and you're right, this isn't the only time we've seen it, but it's probably the best opponent against whom we have seen South Carolina play this complete of a game. We saw the deadly part of playing a team that doesn't have one guy, because who does Mississippi State key on? Is it Kotsar, who finishes with 20? Not exactly an efficient 20 on a career-high 22 field goal attempts, as you mentioned. You can't key on Bryant because he's only got 12. He only took 8 shots. You don't key on Lawson because he only took 7 shots. You don't key on Couisnard. He only took 8 shots. Jair Bolden gives you 8 off the bench. Alonzo Frank gives you 8 off the bench. And that's kind of like, that's not exactly a true 8 off the bench because Micaiah Henry obviously started because it was senior night, and Alonzo Frank normally would have been a starter. So we can consider that 8 from a starter. But point is, very even scoring distribution. Everybody played pretty well. South Carolina moved the ball incredibly well. 20 assists on 32 made baskets. Just all around great performance, and that is the best case scenario for what this team can be right now, short of either A.J. Lawson or Jermaine Couisnard turning into a legitimate superstar in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, you saw, and I wrote it in my What We Learned piece, this is what the offense looks like when it's clicking. They're moving fast. They're getting contributions from, I think, 8 players had at least 8 points. I'm looking here. Lawson had 12, Couisnard had 12, 8, Kotsar with 20, Bryant with 12, Frank with 8, and Bolden with 8. So 6 players with 8 or more points. Mm-hmm. That's huge. If you can get that on a night in and night out basis from everybody, you're going to win more games than you lose. And and they're passing the ball so well, they offensive rebounded the ball really well. 11 offensive rebounds, averaged 1.169 nice points per possession.
Nice.
That is their highest offensive efficiency. I'm looking it up because it's their highest in over a month.
Was the last one that Texas A&M game at home?
Vanderbilt.
Okay.
Vanderbilt, they had a 124.1 points per 100.
It scored 90.
This was 118.7. It's almost 119 points per 100.
Great.
It's good.
Great.
It's really, really good.
It's excellent. And all the numbers bear that out. It's not just that South Carolina is whipping the ball around and it looked nice and they got 20 assists, but they shot over 48% from the field. They shot 5 of 11 from 3, which isn't a lot of threes, but they're taking the looks that were there and they're knocking them down. And hey, shot 73.7% from the free throw line. Does that number sound familiar? It should, because that as a total is 14 of 19, which is exactly what South Carolina shot from the line in Starkville, which is kind of funny.
The more things change.
The more things stay the same. It's so true. Some of the other numbers that stand out from the box score, you mentioned the offensive rebounding. How about just 7 turnovers?
Yeah. What was their net turnover margin?
They were +7.
Yeah, +7.
Outstanding.
Huge.
A clean basketball game. And you know what I have to say? As much as we have spent warranted time complaining about the way that South Carolina games are officiated and SEC games and just college basketball in general, the second half of the South Carolina-Mississippi State game was an enjoyable basketball game, was a clean basketball game with not a lot of fouls, with not a lot of turnovers. It was really nice because it was a game that had rhythm. It was a game that had flow. Like I said, South Carolina, it wasn't comfortable for them, but Mississippi State never really looked like getting over the hump. Like Carolina they'd be up by 4, and then they'd extend that to 8, and then Mississippi State would get it down to 5, and then Carolina would go up by 10. So it always just kind of like oscillated between that 4 and 10. And if you look at the game flow chart, it's pretty much just like parallel lines through for the remainder of the second half. But it was well played, I thought, on both sides, kind of exchanging blows, and Carolina was able to do enough to pull away. And as much as we talked about it being important for South Carolina to, in the reverse fixture in Starkville, take a game that was a 12-point loss with 2 minutes to go and turn it into a 3-point loss that was slightly more efficient and slightly better in the net, I think it's equally important that South Carolina was able to take like a consistent 5 to 6 point lead and extend it to 12 and improve their efficiency and obviously improve their defensive efficiency as Mississippi State missed some shots down the stretch, and for Carolina to push that into the 10-plus range that net decided to value for some reason.
Yeah, and I think it was really impressive that Mississippi State would go on these runs, and it was kind of the exact opposite of what it was in Starkville, and I wrote it, that they got, in Starkville, South Carolina would close the gap, they'd get it to like 2 or 3 or 4, and then Mississippi State would come back with a huge 3 or a bucket or an and one. That's exactly what South Carolina did. Mississippi State would get it down to 4, and then Kusnar would hit a 3, and it'd be 7 again. Or A.J. Lawson would come down and get an and one, and it's back to 7 again. So good teams know how to keep other good teams at arm's length when they need to, and South Carolina did a really, really good job of that Tuesday night. And
again, it's a good Mississippi State team, and important for South Carolina in this game to get that, because you mentioned it right before we turned the mics on. Even when Carolina beat Georgia and scored 94 points, it was still like, they didn't play that well. They still give up 90. It took you overtime to beat Georgia, and yes, Georgia's playing a little bit better now that Anthony Edwards is deciding to cement his status as the number 1 overall pick in the draft in a couple of months. But that was still a game that you felt like Carolina should have won more comfortably. You would have liked to see a better defensive effort. And you were wondering if that was kind of gone. You were wondering if some of the key contributors on this team, if Jermaine Kusnar and Trey Hannibal had sort of hit freshman walls, if Mike Coates was running out of steam a little bit. Keyshawn Bryant was sort of getting back into a groove. He had 3 straight triple-doubles, had another good game on Tuesday with a 12-7 on 5 of 8 shooting. And then Lawson was continuing to ebb, as his whole season has been, just ebb and flow and ebb and flow. Actually, I don't know which one is... Yeah, ebb's probably not the good one if we're talking about how a guy's playing. No. But anyway, AJ hadn't been playing particularly well lately, and I was like, okay, it just feels like this team is running out of steam. And then Tuesday is a night that it was a reinvigorated team on the court. Yeah. And you have to hope that was a big picture reinvigoration and not just sort of an aberration because it's senior night. Right.
Yeah. You hope. You hope that these guys can continue it, and it's going to be one of those things where you have a good opportunity to go out there and beat up on a bad team in Vanderbilt, so you have a chance to kind of carry that through, and you have an opportunity to go into the SEC tournament, winners of 3 of your last 4,
mm-hmm.
and then you get a good team. You beat an okay team in the first round and go play potentially a beatable Auburn or Florida. Then you're looking at 21 wins right there. So
that feels like the magic number for this team right now.
Yeah, absolutely. That feels like the magic number. And there's so many different scenarios. South Carolina is locked into one of 2 seeds, and we'll get to that but who they play and who they have drawn in the second round after they've done that is still TBD.
Mm-hmm.
But South Carolina needs to continue to play the way they played, because if they play like that, they're going to win the majority of their basketball games down the stretch.
We are going to get to a little bit of seeding. Again, there's one game left, and so there's still some things that are yet to be determined exactly, but sort of a early look ahead at what the SEC tournament seeding might look like, and a little bit of a preview of that Vanderbilt game. As you mentioned, South Carolina absolutely dominated Vanderbilt last time out. Excellent offensive efficiency, scored 90 points. I'll ask you this in like 30 minutes when we talk about the Vandy game. They seem like they might be the best bad team ever,
by far,
as they just upset Alabama. Their 2 conference wins are at Alabama and LSU at home. Yeah. So I don't know exactly what that means. We'll talk about that.
Sandwich between a lot of suck. Like a lot of suck.
Yeah, it's like really, really. I mean, it's really like how they're kind of a poor man's version of Georgia, I guess, because it's like Saban Lee. Are you going to have 38 like he did against Alabama? Are you going to have like a 25-9 or whatever he had against LSU? Then you're going to have a good chance to win the game. Otherwise, not so much. But
they lost 8 straight, beat LSU. Lost 7 straight, beat Alabama.
And I said this the other day. If Vanderbilt had one more like really good punching above their weight performance left in the season, Carolina fans better be glad they got it out this week in Tuscaloosa, as opposed to saving it for their home finale this weekend. That'll be a 12:30 tip. Before we get any more into the Vanderbilt game, I want to stick with a few more thoughts from Mississippi State. And I'll start with this, because I mentioned last week, mentioned a couple times now, it felt like Jermaine Couisnard was hitting a little bit of a freshman wall, which you don't hold against him. It's a thing. That's a thing for a reason, because it happens to a lot of freshmen. And if his shot wasn't going to be falling, if he wasn't going to be scoring as efficiently because other teams had figured out how to defend him, were keying on him a little bit more than teams had in the early part of the conference schedule, then the question for Jermaine, and the way that I phrased it, I think just last week, was, what is your counterpunch? And the answer is Tuesday night.
He found it.
Jermaine discovered, or it was unlocked. I don't know if it's Frank Martin or Jermaine or what exactly happened, but Jermaine figured out how to impact a game without having a huge scoring night. He shot just 3 of 8, scored 8 points, 1 of 3 from three-point land, split his free throws.
5 boards,
but 10 assists, and wait for it, 0 turnovers. When was the last time? I mean, it probably hasn't happened since you've been covering South Carolina. It hasn't happened, I don't know, that I can remember. Certainly not since I've been. I mean, I don't cover South Carolina the same way you do, but I just cannot remember the last time any player from South Carolina had 10 assists and 0 turnovers in a game, at least on the men's side.
Here's a list of just the players that have had 10 assists in the last 10 years. So from 2010 to 11, that season, forward. The full list of players who have had 10 assists in a game. Jermaine Couisnard.
That's it?
That's it.
Oh, my gosh.
That's it.
Wow. That's a little bit depressing. But, yeah, okay. So suffice it to say, in that same period of time, he's the only guy to have 10 assists with no turnovers in a game. It didn't even feel like it. Not that I remember him playing badly or having turnovers, but I remember looking at the box score midway through the second half and being stunned because he didn't have a single turnover. And again, he's had a good assist-to-turnover ratio all year, so that's not like I'm expecting him to turn it over. But I just watched him drop a couple times, and I was like, wow, he's probably getting close to a double-double. And I looked, and I was like, well, what's funny is it's at this rate, he's going to have more trouble getting there with the points than he is with the assists. That turned out to be the case. Obviously, it was 2 points shy of collecting, I guess, what would have been his first career double-double. And then I was like, how does he have 0 turnovers? It was so impressive. And the fact that I didn't notice it, I think, was really important because it was all within the flow of the offense.
There are only 2 players with at least 7 turnovers or at least 7 assists and no turnovers since over the last 10 years. Jermaine Couisnard is one of them, obviously, this game. The other, who do you think?
I'm going to guess Sindarius Thornwell.
It's Sindarius Thornwell.
Yeah?
Against Oral Roberts.
Okay.
So not even against
That's the only one. There's only one other game like
with
that.
At least
7 assists and no turnovers.
And the last time against a SEC team, you'd have to go back to 6 assists and no turnovers.
Which was
Sindarius Thornwell against Tennessee.
Okay.
So in 16. So the 25-1 year.
So that is what we saw on Tuesday, a true point guard performance.
A Sindarius Thornwell level performance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Better. Sindarius Thornwell never did that.
Yeah, correct.
Affecting the game without having to score. That's the missing piece for Jermaine Couisnard, or at least that's the missing piece right now. Hopefully he adds things to his game going into next season and the year after that, and continues to add things to his game. But right now, that's his counterpunch, and he has it. And he's not going to have 10 assists and no turnovers every game, but he knows he can do that. His teammates know he can do that. Frank Martin knows he can do that. That changes his game. That changes the complexion of his backcourt
how you defend
dynamic.
him, yeah. It changes how you have to defend him, too. So if he could do that, hell, I mean, it's game over sometimes trying to defend him because he can't get to the rim, but he can also kick. And if they're shooting as well as they did, it's game over.
It's impressive feel for the game, and it's coming in a variety of ways. Some of them kickouts, some of them, driving into the paint. And as you mentioned, other teams have learned to defend Jermaine in a very particular way. Mississippi State obviously saw him just a couple weeks ago, and they're like, all right, cool. This guy's going to go to the hole. He's probably going to pull up for a lot of floaters and stuff. We're going to come out. We're going to contest them, yada, yada. And we see Jermaine. It's so cool and fun when you can basically watch someone learning in real time. And the play that sticks out of my mind is the alley-oop that he threw to Mike, where he does the exact same thing that he probably did, half a dozen times the first time against Mississippi State, and had probably done in this game, where he drives into the paint. He stops 6 feet short of the basket. He pulls the defender up. I don't remember if it was Adu or Perry or whoever it was. And Jermaine reads it perfectly, sees Mike standing at the dunker spot, and throws up a lob and helps Mike finish, I don't know.
First alley-oop.
First alley-oop ever?
Ever.
I was going to say that, but then I didn't want to sound
ever
mean.
in a game. He did say that
okay.
he had some in practice.
Mm-hmm.
This is the first time that fans had actually seen him.
Yeah, but not. I didn't know. I remember him saying that post-game, but I didn't know if that just meant from Jermaine or if that was ever. Which it wouldn't surprise me if it did.
I think it was ever. I think it was ever.
What a night to do it. Senior night. First alley-oop ever.
Yeah, and he didn't even celebrate. That was he just jogged back down the court, and you're like, Mike, you're up. You went back up 10 points.
Mm-hmm.
Throw your arms up in the air, celebrate. This is your last time here. You threw down a damn alley-oop dunk for the first time ever. Dunk. That's awesome.
Oh, Mike. Let's do Mike next then. We probably should have started with Mike in honor of senior night, but I was just so blown away with that 10 assists, 0 turnover performance from Jermaine. I just had to start with that because I think it's really important for the future of this team. It was Mike's night, though. Mike led the team in scoring. He led the team in field goal attempts. He led all of his other career games in field goal attempts. He got yelled at by Frank Martin in spectacular fashion, such spectacular fashion that it made all of the TV highlight reels, especially when they would play the side-by-side. It was particularly fun.
See it.
Oh, it was really fun because you get to see, obviously Frank and Mike, laughing and hugging each other at the beginning of the game, and then it was a pretty standard Frank Martin blow up, but it was just really funny because they put it side by side, and it was that's pretty great. Yeah. Mike Kotsar, completely unfazed, started out pretty well. What did he have? His first 4 shots or 4 of his first 5, and then missed a boatload of shots, and then made a couple shots when it mattered. We mentioned the alley oop. There was the 15-footer with. Not long to go to put Carolina up by 7 or by 5. I don't remember exactly, but showed confidence, showed aggression throughout the game, even though his shot wasn't falling. And he spoke about it after the game in his press conference. He was asked, just the difference between last year and this year, and it was confidence. It was his teammates empowering him to continue to take those shots. So 9 of 22 is not a great shooting night, but it's great that Mike allowed himself to miss 13 shots and was still there at the end of the game to hit a big shot, that 15-foot jumper from the elbow to extend the lead.
And I think it speaks to his growth. And there's a story going up. It's 9:51. It'll be up by the time we finish this podcast. That where I write my lead is Mike Kotsar threw down an alley-oop dunk, and a year ago you couldn't even imagine him dunking, let alone throwing down an alley-oop. And it just speaks to the growth that he's had, and his family's been a huge part of that. His coaching staff's been a huge part of that. And it's so fun to see, and you have to be unbiased in this business, and you don't root for teams. You're around these people so much, you root for success because you don't like seeing people fail. So watching Mike Kotsar take that lap after the game, it was really cool to see, and because he's been through so much shit at South Carolina, has been the ire of fans for so long because he struggled so much his junior year. The fact that he was able to go and take a victory lap after winning his final game in a game that could potentially be a tournament win, a tournament resume boosting win, just says a lot about his growth. And you don't hate it for Mike. It's really, really cool to see for a guy like Mike.
It's great.
Yeah.
20 points, just 2 rebounds. We can talk about that in just a minute. 4 assists, a steal, and just continues to be the rock of this team. You mentioned thinking just a year ago about Mike dunking it all, much less finishing an alley-oop. How about thinking about Mike continuing to just be an excellent free throw shooter?
Yeah.
The best free throw shooter on the team. I don't know if that's by percentage, but if I'm gonna choose any Carolina player to be on the line in a crucial moment for South Carolina, it's going to be Mike, just based on how he shot this entire season, and especially in SEC play, made both of his free throws solid. I don't want to say anything bad about him because it was senior night and because he was huge, but if there is anything to criticize about his performance on Tuesday, we mentioned that was his last chance to have a high-profile kind of one-on-one matchup against another good big to continue to build his case for SEC Defensive Player of the Year or first team all defense or whatever it ends up being. Reggie Perry did end up having a really good game. Now, Mike did an excellent job on him the first time a couple weeks ago. He finished with 10 and 10 and 7 turnovers, did Perry. Perry finishes this game with a 17-16, and the 16 is obviously a little more concerning than the 17 because he did shoot just 5 of 13 from the floor, 6 of 7 from the free throw line was Perry, but 16 rebounds, and Mike was just 2. That's a pretty significant disparity right there.
Yeah, I hadn't even looked at Perry's stat line much, and holy crap.
Yep.
He's good.
Yep. And only played 26 minutes. 17, 16, and 26 minutes.
He might be SEC Player of the Year, though.
Yeah.
Like, legitimately might be SEC Player of the Year.
So there's no shame in that, but that was, if Mike had another, hold him to 10 points on inefficient shooting and force a bunch of turnovers, that was going to be like, okay, here's the last piece of the puzzle. Mike's not going to be Defensive Player of the Year. You hope this doesn't hold him back in terms of a nod for first team all defense, because I think he definitely deserves it. But given that this is the last look that some of the voters are going to get in terms of that marquee matchup, hope that doesn't leave a lasting impression, because not the best night for Mike defensively, and especially not on the glass.
Yeah, and you need more of that. And rebounding's been such a positive this year that one game's not going to really define you. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that it'll be fine. I'm not worried about Mike or his ability to. No,
and I can guarantee. You know him a lot better than I do. You've talked to him. You talk to him basically after every game, it seems like. I'm pretty sure he's not concerned about making first team all defense or first team all SEC or defensive player of the year. He's probably just more concerned with Carolina winning against Vanderbilt, making getting the 5 seed in the SEC tournament or whatever, and winning as many games as possible there, and then going to the NCAA tournament, because that would be a really cool bookend to his career to be able to do it his freshman year, and then of course his senior year. But all around good night for Mike. Again, the 22 field goal attempt says to me a lot about his confidence and a lot about his willingness to miss some shots. He would miss a couple shots. The first 3 years of his career, he would miss 2 shots in a row, and then you're like, okay, well, he's done for the game. And that was it. There was no getting it back. And this Mike, seriously, what did he start, 4-4 or 4-5? And then missed an ass of shots. And it didn't matter. He kept shooting, and he made him when it mattered.
I remember for the story that is going to post here at 10 a.m. Eastern, I talked to Hassani Gravett a little bit about Mike, and it didn't make the story, but I asked him, I was like, if I told you Mike had been averaging 10 points and 6 rebounds, almost 7 rebounds a game as a senior, what would you have said? And he goes, told you he could have done it. He goes, I've seen it. When he goes out there and hits shots early, you could tell he wants the ball. You tell, and you're starting to see that, but you're starting to see that willingness even if he's missing shots.
Right.
And for him to be so fearless in that regard, coming from a guy that was too scared to go to the free throw line his sophomore and junior years, says a lot about his growth and says a lot about where he's been. And Mike Kotsar could be one of the first guys to go to 2 tournaments at South Carolina since the McGuire days.
That's before you and I were born.
Yes.
Just by a little bit.
Yeah, by a lot of it.
Yeah.
So, he's had a damn good career. A damn good career.
And it's been a great story.
Yeah.
It's been the story of the year. It's been the most fun thing to watch.
And he's so he's so personable away from basketball. Just talking with him and being around him. Not that I'm sitting there, going out and having beers with my coach because that's super frowned upon and you don't do it. But
next year you can, though.
Yeah.
Next year we got to get him in the studio to do some Gamecock Central podcast network podcast.
I like that.
Yeah.
But he's so personable and he's such a good guy that you root for people like that, which is why senior night was so cool to see him go out there and put up 20 points and help lead his team to a win.
Great story. Good performance. Pivotal for South Carolina to win. They needed every bit of those 20 points. Never mind. I'm not going to do a segue like that. Keyshawn Bryant's been playing better lately. And it's been more consistent. Yeah.
Good Keyshawn Bryant.
Yeah. Good Keyshawn Bryant. 3 straight double-doubles and doesn't have a double-double on Tuesday, but still finishes with 12 points, 7 rebounds on 5 of 8 shooting, made both of his free throws. Had a couple turnovers, but hey, it's not 4, which it felt like he was doing on a gamely basis or a regular basis early in the conference slate. Good Keyshawn is back, and that's good news for South Carolina.
Yes, you need him playing well. Especially, we don't know for sure, but there's a possibility Justin Minaya comes back, and if you work Justin Minaya in defensively to help out, and Keyshawn Bryant's still giving you 12 to 15 a night, that bodes well for South Carolina. That's a good thing for South Carolina. Finished his offensive rating the last 3 games has been over 109, which is phenomenal. He's playing efficient basketball. He's not taking a 3, which I think is important.
Great. Yeah. Don't take any more.
Don't do it. He's made, I'm trying to do quick math here, 20 shots over his last 3 games and has taken less than 15 per game. So 27 plus 8 is 35. He's 20 of 35 from the field his last 3 games.
It's very good. He's not a guy with range, obviously. He'll take like a 15-footer on the baseline. I think he made one Tuesday night against Mississippi State. But he's someone that you want taking high percentage shots. You know, if Jermaine or AJ, if they have like a 5 of 16 kind of game, it's not necessarily the worst thing, or a 7 of 20 kind of game. It's not the worst thing because they're taking some harder shots. They're going to be taking threes and things like that. You can afford to absorb that because guys like Keyshawn, guys like Mike are expected to be a little bit more efficient because they're closer to the basket and they're taking higher percentage looks. So for Keyshawn, you mentioned not taking the threes. He's eliminating a lot of the long twos as well and not forcing it. He's taking that. That was one of my biggest takeaways from South Carolina offensively Tuesday, and Keyshawn was kind of a microcosm of that. It wasn't just that they moved the ball around. It wasn't just that they had 20 assists, but they let the offense come to them.
Yeah.
They didn't. I don't remember a single possession where it felt like they forced a shot. They moved it, they worked the ball around until they got a good look, and they took it. And when you do that, that's how you shoot almost 50% from the floor.
Yeah, and they hit jump shots, which has been pretty hit or miss this year for South Carolina, literally and figuratively. When they hit jump shots, this offense works at about, as well as it ever could. So when you knock down those, especially early, getting a few big buckets early from Jair Bolden was huge. So when you could do that and take smart shots and give your defense a chance to set up, it's nothing but good things for South Carolina.
AJ Lawson, second highest minute total on the team, 35 minutes, 12 points, 3 of 7 shooting, 2 of 5 from 3, 4 of 5 from the free throw line, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, 3 steals, and wait for it, 0 turnovers.
Ta-da!
A good AJ game. We'll call it a good AJ game.
Solid AJ game.
Yeah, solid AJ game.
4 or 5 from the line was huge.
4 or 5 from the line was big. 3 of 7, he needs to take and make more shots. But 3 of 7 by itself is not a bad number. 2 of 5, that's fine. That's what you need to be hitting from 3. 4 or 5 from the free throw line, that's exactly what you need to be doing there. And not exactly the same way, not as prolific as Jermaine, but AJ impacting the game without necessarily needing to score. You were getting some, a lot of scoring from Mike Kotsar because he had 8 or 10 earlier, whatever it was. And you were getting good contributions from the bench guys. AJ didn't need to force it. He didn't need to take 17 shots on Tuesday night. He knew that he could take 7 and collect some rebounds and dish a couple dimes and play some good defense, collect some steals, and most importantly, don't turn the ball over. Don't give the other team those free possessions, those free points. And he and Jermaine, was this the best collective backcourt performance from South Carolina in a while?
From an all-around standpoint.
Yeah, not absolutely. A lot of scoring, but
absolutely.
But yeah, let's see, 12 assists, 0 turnovers, 9 rebounds, 3 steals.
That's what you need. That's what you need on a night in and night out basis.
Yeah, you want more than 20 points, but everything else was above and beyond where it needed to be on a consistent basis.
Yeah, and that's what, if you're going to win games in the SEC tournament, you're going to need these guards to play well, and this team goes as its guards go. And if you can get that kind of play from AJ and Jermaine on a consistent basis, then hell yeah, sign, Frank Martin sign him up for that on a consistent basis. And they finished Lawson finished plus 13, and Kustar finished plus 19.
Yeah.
So
that feels right.
The two highest on the team, actually.
Good backcourt game.
Very good.
Keep it up. Got a stiff test coming up on Saturday. And Saban Lee is coming off a 38-point performance. We'll talk about Vanderbilt in just a minute. Also, good bench performance. We'll start with Frank because he's a starter. Micaiah Henry started, but Frank played 14 minutes off the bench, made 3 of his 4 shots, got his
2 or 3 from the line.
2 or 3 from the line, got his 4 fouls. He should just start every game with that.
Yeah.
But 8 points, a couple rebounds, an assist, a steal. Frank, let's see. Let me pull up his game log because I want to make sure I'm not missing a dud in there, but it feels like last couple
3
games.
Straight, consistent.
Yeah,
you don't look at it and be like, wow, other than the 22
pointer. There's a 22 against Georgia, but a 10-7 against Alabama in 20 minutes is kind of what you need. 8, and you'd like to see more than 2 rebounds, but 8 points on 3 of 4 shooting in 14 minutes against Mississippi State is kind of what you need. That's 3 straight good to great in the case of the Georgia game performances from Alonzo Frank. What's funny is now that he's kind of finding his groove as Carolina's 5th guy, Justin Minaya might come back. Now, I guess he's not going to be starting necessarily against Vanderbilt, but presumably would be at least in that starting and closing group for Carolina in the SEC tournament, which means Frank's got to go right back to the bench and just hope that he keeps up that level of confidence and offensive efficiency.
Yeah, or, hell, you could start him. You can keep starting him and bring Minaya in off the bench, and that way Minaya won't be on a minute restriction because Frank Martin was very, very adamant he would not be on a minute restriction there. But he's missed 3 shots in his last 3 games total. 3 shots in his last 3 games.
Mm-hmm.
He's playing about as well as you can ask him to. This is the Alonzo Frank everyone thought he could be at the beginning of the year. Gives you 8 to 10 points a game. Hauls in. You want him to haul in more than 2 rebounds, but he can give you 5 rebounds, an assist, and turn the ball over once with 3 fouls. I think if you had told me that in November, I think that would say Alonzo Frank had a good year.
Yeah, and now it hasn't been that for most of the year, and we've talked about it before. There have been some extenuating circumstances in terms of other guys taking some of those minutes from Frank, but it's nice that he's starting to get that together at the right time. You add Justin Minaya back into that. Yeah, I'll be very curious to see. Now, he did get reevaluated. We're recording this Thursday morning. He did get reevaluated yesterday. We have not heard anything. Not that I would have. You have not heard anything. Seems like whatever news Frank Martin might have gotten, maybe hanging on for his Collyn show tonight?
Probably.
Okay. All right, cool. Well, that's at 7 o'clock on 107.5 The Game, so that will probably be the first place you hear some Justin Minaya news. That's going to be significant for South Carolina one way or the other.
Yeah. Frank also plus 10.
Plus 10?
Plus 10.
In 14 minutes, wow.
I
feel like even when he has good games, he's like minus 3.
Yeah, but he was plus 10. And there were only 2 players that finished sub-0.
Ooh, I got this.
So Micaiah Henry obviously was at 0 because he was 4-4 when he got pulled, so it's not him.
And TJ Moss.
TJ Moss and who?
Oh, I thought it was TJ Moss
2
and
were
Henry.
in the negatives.
Oh, Micaiah was a 0.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He didn't play that much. 8 minutes. No.
3 minutes did Micaiah play. TJ Moss
11
played 5 minutes.
This was 11
Oh, so Wildens?
Yeah.
Wildens was minus?
Minus
Okay.
4.
Because he had a really nice sequence where he grabbed like an offensive rebound, had a putback, had a block on the other end, had another offensive rebound, and I think missed the putback, but was very active.
Minus 4, but you live with that as a freshman.
Yeah.
What do we think TJ Moss was?
TJ Moss in just 5 minutes, I bet he was minus 6.
Minus 11.
Minus 11 in just 5 minutes? Now, that was when Mississippi State was going on the run and South Carolina had gotten their backcourt into some foul trouble.
Yeah.
But
there was a reason they went on the run.
Let's do that. You texted me like as this was transpiring, and you said, hold on, I'll pull up the text. It was something to the effect of, hold on, I'm pulling it up. You said, come on, where is it? You just texted it to me like 2 days ago, and we don't actually even text that much. I got a lot of opinions on TJ Moss. Tuesday, 7:48 p.m.
That was in the middle of the run. He was, and I hate piling on players because these guys are 19 years old, but.
And we pile on this guy a lot.
Man, like, that was just a bad performance. And he's had good
he's had good performance.
Yes.
Kentucky.
No
5
points.
minutes, 0 of 1.
No rebounds, no
a turnover,
assists.
2 fouls.
Yeah, like, minus 11. And I know you had to play him because your guards were in foul trouble. But, man, it was rough to watch.
So since SEC play started, I'm going to go through his turnovers from Florida through now. And keep in mind, he's played more than 20 minutes twice. He had 3 turnovers against Florida, 1 against Tennessee, 0 against Kentucky. That was a good game. 2 against Auburn, 0 against Vandy, 0 against Arkansas, 1 against Missouri, 1 against Miss, 2 against A&M. Didn't turn it over against Georgia the first time. 1 against Tennessee, 1 against Mississippi State, none against LSU, none against Georgia, 1 against Alabama, 1 against Mississippi State. That's a lot of turnovers for a guy that doesn't play that much. And here, this is the real number. Here are his field goal numbers. It's going to be the raw totals.
I can give you the stats. I have it clumped.
Yeah, that's probably better.
He's averaging 10.9 minutes per game in SEC play.
Mm-hmm.
Averaging 2 shots a game, shooting 32.4%, 36.8% from 2, 26.7% from 3, 20% from the free throw line. 1 assist, 2.2 steals, no blocks, 0.9 turnovers, 1.7.
Yeah. The thing about TJ that just really stands out is just the amount of games that are like 0 of 1, 0 of 0, 0 of 2.
Yeah.
Like 1 of 1 against Florida, 1 of 1 against Tennessee, 0 of 2 against Vanderbilt, 0 of 0 against Arkansas, 0 of 1 against A&M, 0 of 1 against Georgia, 0 of 1 against Tennessee, 0 of 0 against Mississippi State, 0 of 1 against LSU, 0 of 0 against Alabama, 0 of 1 against Mississippi. Like, if you're in there, I'm not encouraging him to shoot more because he's not a good shooter and he's not going to make shots. But if you're not going to be in there and you're not going to be a threat to shoot and you're not going to have that many assists and you're going to turn the ball over a lot, I mean, Trey Hannibal is the next guard off the bench now, obviously, by a significant margin from Toronto, which is great.
Yeah.
I guess those minutes are going to go to 7th next year. We'll say it like that.
Probably.
It's unfortunate. I don't know. He played 7 games last year, and he seemed fine in those 7 games.
I like TJ, and I like TJ a lot. But Tuesday night's performance.
He's just realistically, he's probably the 10th best player of anybody that played Tuesday night. I was going to say 11th, but
and it's hard to say, and I hate piling on, but man, it was just he was the 5th best guard behind Jermaine, AJ, Trey,
and Jair. Yeah, not a good game.
No.
You have your opinions anymore, or did you get it out?
No, I got it out.
Okay, all right, you got it out. We talked about Frank Levesque. Unfortunate that he was minus. Again, that was in the midst of Mississippi State's run, but I don't know. Even despite that, I thought he played well. Like I said,
it was really energetic.
Yeah, activity. 4 points, 4 rebounds in 11 minutes. Did have a couple of blocks.
Only 1 foul.
Yeah, not bad. I mean, just maybe unfortunate timing that he was in during that run. Now, again, we're going to sit here and be like, yeah, individual game plus minus doesn't mean that much, and we just used it to crucify TJ.
Okay, but minus 11 in 5 minutes.
Yeah, the difference minus 4 in 11 minutes. Yeah. Jalen McCreary, just 10 minutes, 5 points, 4 rebounds. Did have 4 fouls in 10 minutes. Either he or Levesque, one of those two, is going to get into foul trouble in a hurry. It's just kind of they must flip a coin in the locker room.
Like, okay, I'm going to go out there and hack everybody.
Yeah. Still fun, though. Still energetic.
Oh, both of those guys are really fun to watch.
Yeah, I just like both of those guys. Whenever they're in the game, I'm like, oh, what's he going to do? What's he going to do?
Because you don't know. And
right.
That's the fun part.
And Levesque is a little bit different because it's not as athletic as McCreary. McCreary, obviously, very athletic, but Levesque still is going to do some things. And like I said, he's just got such a nose for rebounds. And you see it with his propensity to collect offensive rebounds. I think Alonzo Frank was leading the team the last time we checked in offensive rebounding rate, and Levesque was right behind him. I would imagine after the last couple games, I feel like he's picked up a couple offensive boards that Levesque may have passed him. Frank did have an offensive rebound and 1 defensive rebound in 14 minutes on Tuesday. I just continue to be impressed with Levesque's nose for the ball.
Levesque is leading the team in offensive rebound rate.
There we go.
By a 1/10 of a percentage point.
Good job, Wildens.
He's at 13.3. Alonzo's at 13.2.
Do you think Frank will get him like a gilded plate or something like that at the end of the season for that? Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Frank seems all about, silverware and awards and trophies and things like that.
Yeah.
Hold on to that crown, Wildens.
Yeah, I think if there's one thing Frank loves, it's participation trophies.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Frank loves participation.
Loves it. Thanks, Obama.
Yeah. Yeah, he's going to be good. I'm not really worried about him.
Nope. Trey Hannibal, also going to be good. 13 minutes, 6 points, had a rebound, had an assist, had a steal, had a block, had a turnover, had 3 fouls.
Yeah, it's a Trey Hannibal stat line.
That's a Trey Hannibal stat line, yeah. 2 of 3 shooting, made both of his free throws, which was nice. He's got to improve his shot, especially from the outside.
He had a couple jumpers, though.
Yeah.
He had like one jumper that was like, okay.
But it like stood out. I was like, oh, he doesn't normally do that.
It's flat as all get out.
It's so flat.
But
Yeah, he's got to work on that.
It was his jump shot is what Keyshawn's was last year. Like, you looked at Keyshawn's and you were like, ooh, that's flat.
Yeah.
And then Keyshawn hit this beautiful, like, arcing. I remember that because I was like, oh, damn, that's not going to go in. And it's just, thump. You're like, okay.
No, it's still a work in progress for Keyshawn, but for Trey, that's what he's got to work on. But for someone that I also thought had kind of hit the freshman wall, another solid performance. You shouldn't expect or need much more than that from him off the bench. Good 13 minutes of defense. 6 points is gravy.
Plus
Did
13.
it relatively efficiently. Yeah, plus 13, that's nice. And collect a few other stats along the way.
Yeah.
Solid performance from Trey. They don't need a whole lot from him, but good to see him kind of getting back into it because I feel like his last couple games have been really underwhelming.
Yeah, what do you think happens first? Trey Hannibal starts a basketball game, or Trey Hannibal and Frank Martin kill each other?
I would say kill each other because I don't think Frank will ever start Trey Hannibal.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think those two guys like each other so much and are so similar that, and Trey does so much stuff that just gets under Frank's skin, but he has to play him because he's good.
It seems like a real love-hate relationship. And
they love each other.
It was just a couple of months ago that we were talking about, Trey Hannibal's not going to be playing enough by the end of the season, and Frank doesn't like him and all this stuff, and Frank has...
They love him.
He's seen the light.
They really, really like each other, and that's part of the reason why Hannibal came to South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
But he just does some things that you got to break him. For those that did not watch Trey Hannibal in high school, and I watched Trey Hannibal a lot in high school, his team was, and no disrespect to Hartsville basketball, they were really good. His team was Trey Hannibal and the Hannibalettes. Like, it was give the ball to, like, Trey Hannibal literally inbounded the ball to a guard, got the ball back, brought the ball up, took the shot, got the rebound. But I mean, it was just, it was Trey Hannibal.
That makes sense.
Trey Hannibal. And you're seeing that now in college, and they're trying to break him of that.
Mm-hmm.
And he's doing better, but it takes time when you've been conditioned.
Yeah, and especially when you have limited minutes. Like, if you have like 8 to 10 minutes a game to like see what he's going to do and fix that or let him work through that or whatever, it's I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, that's a tall task, but it's a work in progress and a solid game from Trey, and that's all they can hope and expect to get from him for the rest of the season, at least enough that they don't have to play TJ Moss anymore. Minutes leader from the bench, Jair Bolden, 21 minutes, 3 of 4 from the field, 2 of 3 from three-point land, a rebound, a couple assists, a steal, didn't turn the ball over, 8 points.
He hit the most fun shot of the night.
Which one was that?
The pull-up 3 in transition.
Oh, yeah.
That was awesome.
Yeah. He does that.
There's no bigger, like, put it on the table, like, shot than a pull-up 3
in transition. Yeah. But that's what he does. Eric Kimry, with whom I host The Extra Point at 12 o'clock weekdays on 107.5 The Game.
Sick humble brag.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Big time. I love doing the show with Eric. And he went to the game Tuesday, and one of his first takeaways, after seeing them in person, because I think that might have been the first basketball game he went to this year, the first men's game, it was like, feels like Jair Bolden is underutilized, which is funny and a little bit dangerous. I feel like he's exactly properly utilized, but I can understand why he thinks that.
You get your 8 points from him and you get him out of the game.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
It's like, okay, we got 8. All right.
Yeah. Now, every once in a while, he'll heat check and he'll give you 19, he'll give you 22 or 24 or whatever, but I can understand why you go and you see that and you see how silky his jumper is when he's got it going, and you're like, wow, this guy needs to play more, but he's in the exact perfect role. And
he's
going to
go 0 for 6 against Vanderbilt because that's just how his stat line goes.
Yeah, 100%, which is fine. That's what they need from him, but it feels like, and to be fair, as nice as the jumper is in terms of playing Jair Moore, that's really the only thing he does well. He doesn't defend well. He doesn't dribble well. He shows he's shown some flashes of like nice playmaking ability, but not with any consistency. But I still think just his scoring potential, his outside shot, if he can get a little bit better at creating some space to create his own shot, and he becomes sort of the anchor of Carolina's bench units next year, along with Frank and Hannibal and whomever else, I feel like he could end up being a 6-man of the year candidate if he's scoring like 12 or 13 points
he's Hassani.
A game off the bench. Yeah, Hassani without the defense, but Hassani with his senior year scoring.
Yeah, and you look at Jair, I mean, he's got the tools to be a good defender. Now it's just a matter of getting to that point.
Yeah, and his feet are a little slow, but...
he's strong.
Yeah.
He's smart, but just got to get better at different stuff. And I don't think it would be as expository, if that's the right word to use, if AJ and Jermaine were consistent on-ball defenders. If that makes sense. That a lot of his mistakes get... Like, Justin Mackey's admitted to me, has told me to my face, I had slow feet. Like, my feet were like cinder blocks. And Sin and Dwayne knew that. So I never had to help. They always helped.
Huh.
So as you get more defensive cohesion, then AJ can help and Jair can rotate to their man, different things like that.
That's interesting. Got to get Justin back in here to break down Jair's feet.
Justin Mackey's he's like, I knew I was slow. But Sin and Dwayne also knew.
Yeah, that's slow. Good. You have to understand your strengths and weaknesses. Yeah. That's how you build a team.
He goes, Sindarius was, I forget what he told me, but like, Sindarius, we knew, if this guy drove this way, you had to help. And he goes, Dwayne, we didn't worry about Dwayne.
Yeah.
Dwayne had it.
Yeah.
We're like, okay.
Guy, doesn't matter who's driving, which way he's going, what he's going to do.
Dwayne had him.
Dwayne's got it. That should have been a T-shirt that year.
Dwayne had him.
Or Dwayne has him or something like that.
Mike Coates are same way.
Yeah. Mike has him.
I was talking to Perry Clark yesterday and for the story, and he's like, we don't even talk about Mike Coates around the game plan. We look at who their best player is, and we say, Mike's got him, and we move on. Like, that's the game plan for Mike. It's like, okay, and this guy, good, got him. Mike's got him.
Point guard, 2, 3, 4, 5, got him.
Who gives a shit? Mike's got him.
Yeah. Oh, it's great. The upside of this team defensively, once they get into tournament play and once the referees swallow the whistle a little bit more, is very exciting.
Yes.
Very exciting. Now, 45 combined fouls in the game on Tuesday. But like I said, it felt like in the second half they were swallowing it a little bit more. Mississippi State, they took, 18 free throws in the first half, I think, or 16 or 20. They took a lot of free throws in the first half. Not as many in the second half. And Carolina went to the free throw line, 19 times, not a ton. A lot of that was Mississippi State sort of fouling at the end to try to give themselves a few extra possessions.
But 18 in the first, 9 in the second.
Yeah, so that was nice. In the second half, you saw a little bit more of what a game looks like if you're allowed to play with flow, both for South Carolina offensively and when they're allowed to be a little bit more physical defensively. Just 71 given up in the game. 83-71. You knew they were going to go up in the net because Mississippi State was higher than South Carolina in the net. And when you add in how efficient Carolina was offensively and how efficient they were defensively, that leads to them jumping 4 spots in the net up to 61. At least that was Tuesday night. That may have changed since we're recording
They're
this.
They're up to 60 now.
They're up to 60 now. Great. So someone in front of them fell down. I guess that was Alabama, probably. VCU? Okay. Interesting. Alabama can't be very far ahead of South Carolina in the net, but that is neither here nor there. I imagine South Carolina continued to strengthen its hold on the number one defensive efficiency in the league. As like I said, they had another really good, efficient defensive performance. Meanwhile, Kentucky was upset by Tennessee and gave up a boatload of points in the second half, so that did not help their case, and they were the second most efficient defense in the SEC. Don't know why I can't say words today, but that's okay. This team's going to be, whatever postseason it is, whether it's the NIT or whether it's the NCAA tournament, they're going to be a bear defensively.
Yeah. It's not a team and Ben Howland said it's not a team you want to play because it's so damn hard to defend or play against them because they're so physical. So defensively, I thought this was probably their best performance in a very long time against a good offensive team in Mississippi State. So, yeah, you hold them to like a scoreless drought of 5 minutes or something like that. That's good teams don't go through that, and the fact that they did shows how good South Carolina's defense can be on the top end. Anything else to say about Mississippi State? No. Good win for South Carolina. Very good win. Very important win. Had to have it. Now they have to have this one against Vanderbilt on Saturday. Yeah. 12:30. 11:30 local start time. Oh, it's gorgeous. It's really nice. Gorgeous. It's really nice. But does that factor in? Does that worry you? Should that worry Carolina fans? I mean, these guys have to play in the morning. They played a lot of night games lately. Maybe, probably. Now, they got an extra day of rest because their midweek conference game was on Tuesday. Yeah, so they had, what was yesterday? They had Wednesday off. Practice Thursday. Practice Friday. Travel Friday. Yeah. And then they probably won't go through shoot-around on Saturday morning. Yeah, because they didn't go through shoot-around against A&M when they played at A&M. So they probably won't do shoot-around. So they'll have something Friday night in Nashville. You're good enough to beat Vanderbilt at 11. Definitely, yeah. And you're good enough. You don't need to play as well as you did against Mississippi State. You do need to play that well because you want to keep the momentum going. You want to be playing well going into the tournament. Yeah, on offense and on defense. But this game is this game anything more than
what does Saban Lee do, and what can Carolina do to stop Saban Lee? Is there anything else worth talking about?
No. It's just contain Saban Lee, and then things will tend to go your way.
And that's Jermaine's job.
Yeah, that's you slap Jermaine on him and say, have fun.
And say, all right, last game your counterpunch was 10 assists, no turnovers. This game, give us 10 points, give us 2 assists, no turnovers, and play good defense.
And hold Saban Lee to 17 points.
Yeah, 17 points on 6 of 22 shooting.
Yeah.
That's his job.
Easier said than done.
Yeah.
Saban Lee's good.
Saban Lee's really good. Saban Lee's playing well. It's at home. I mean, frankly, Vanderbilt has just been playing a lot better down the stretch, even though they've gotten blown out in some games. They beat LSU, and you mentioned they went on another 7-game losing streak. Let me pull it up because it feels like they lost by 10 in a couple games.
They lost by 10 to Mississippi State, 14 to Kentucky.
And that Kentucky game was closer than the 14.
Yeah. 18 to Florida, 4 to Tennessee, 2 to Georgia. They got Kusnard on that Georgia game.
Mm-hmm.
They got beat on a half-court pull-up buzzer beater.
9 against Missouri.
16 against Ole Miss, and then beat Alabama by 8.
I mean, that's a tough stretch. Kentucky tournament team, Florida tournament team. At Tennessee, working their way into the bubble, you lose that one by 4. Georgia with Anthony Edwards doing Anthony Edwards things. They're still not a good team. They're 10-20. They're 2 and whatever, 15 in conference play now.
But they have one really, really good player in Saban Lee. And South Carolina tends to do well when teams only have one guard that can drive you instead of 2 guards that can drive you.
Yeah.
So
and Saban Lee was worth pointing out. Saban Lee was still a good basketball player when Carolina played him the first time and won by whatever it was, 24, 90 to.
He had a really good game.
90 to. I don't remember what the final score was. I
a lot
Carolina
to a little.
90. Yeah.
90 to 64.
90 to 64. Okay, yeah, so 26.
A lot to a little.
Saban Lee had 38 in the Alabama win. I underestimated his stat line in the LSU game. He had 33, 4, and 6 on 13 of 20 shooting. That's good.
Yes.
So keep him to below 30, and you're probably okay.
That would be the ideal goal for South Carolina.
How many times has Saban Lee scored at least 30 points this year? Trivia.
6.
3. Just 3.
Huh.
Just 3. And Vanderbilt is 2-1. The one game that they lost, Saban Lee scored 30 points. He had a
34-pointer?
34, 2, and 4 against Georgia when they lost by 2.
Where he shot 13 of 17 from the field.
Yeah. Or 12 of 17.
Yeah.
Not bad. So
Good Lord,
hold him to fewer than 30 points, and South Carolina should win that one and finish the season 19-12, 11-7 in conference, and will probably end up with the 5 seed in the SEC tournament. Is that right?
It depends on what other teams do. So if it's just head-to-head against Mississippi State, they get the tiebreaker. It would be the 5. But there is a scenario in round robin, because these tiebreakers are all weird, that where South Carolina could end up with the 6th seed. And win and still end up with the 6th seed.
Okay. Just to set the table real quick, we're recording this Thursday morning, so nothing else will happen in conference play in terms of the standings until Saturday, so this will stay fresh for a couple of days, so I don't feel bad. Like, if we were doing this like yesterday and there were still conference games we played, it wouldn't be worth it, but we have a couple days now to let this marinate.
Yes.
Number 1, Kentucky. Number 2, Auburn. Number 3, LSU. Number 4, Florida. All 3 of those teams are 11-6. And that's the tiebreakers in order. Auburn with the tiebreaker over LSU, LSU with the tiebreaker over Florida.
Mississippi State and South Carolina soon after that.
Both at 10-7, South Carolina with the tiebreaker over Mississippi State.
There is a chance Mississippi State could get the double bye. Mississippi State and Florida, the only kind of 2 teams.
South Carolina would have to lose to Vanderbilt. Mississippi State would have to win. Florida would have to lose. And then Mississippi State has the tiebreaker over Florida. Is that scenario?
I believe so, yes.
After South Carolina, you have Tennessee, Texas A&M at 9-8. Alabama at 8-9.
Yes.
And then Arkansas 7-10, Ole Miss 6-11, Missouri 6-11, Georgia 5-12, Vanderbilt 2-15 with wins over LSU and at Alabama, which is great. Hey, great news for Carolina though. They jumped 20-something spots in the net, so makes it a little bit better. That puts them into quad 2 road win territory, right? At 140, isn't cutoff 150?
Maybe, I think so.
That could be a quad 2 road win for South Carolina because they upset
South Carolina.
Alabama.
Yeah,
there you go.
The scenario that I think is advantageous for South Carolina is getting the 6th seed, because then you get the 11 and 14 matchup, which is more than likely Missouri Vanderbilt. So let's throw this scenario out there. A&M beats Arkansas. Kentucky beats Florida. LSU beats Georgia. Alabama beats Missouri. Mississippi State beats Ole Miss at home. Tennessee beats Auburn. And Vanderbilt loses to South Carolina.
So that's all very realistic. The least likely of those is Tennessee beating Auburn. But other than that, that's probably chalk for this weekend in terms of the lines.
You would think.
Yeah.
Now, that would put South Carolina as the 6th seed because they lost to Auburn, Florida, and Mississippi State based on round robin. They were 1-3 in those games because it would create a 1, 2, 3, 4-way tie.
Oh, boy.
At 11-7. But South Carolina would be the 6th seed. They would play the late game on Thursday. My math's correct.
Which you
Thursday.
hate.
But for South Carolina fans, it's very advantageous. You would play either Missouri or Vanderbilt. Then, if you win, you'd play Florida.
As opposed to
LSU, Auburn, or Kentucky.
That is good. Is that the only scenario where South Carolina could avoid Kentucky, Auburn, and LSU on Friday?
Now, let's say if Auburn wins, South Carolina would be the 6th seed playing Missouri or Vanderbilt, and then had to go play LSU.
Okay. All right. So go Tennessee. Tennessee, who just beat Florida and then just beat Kentucky and are fighting for their lives. Auburn's not...
They're banged up.
Well, and they're not really fighting for anything. Aren't they guaranteed a double bye because of the tiebreakers?
Probably, yeah.
I think they can't be any worse than the 4.
Yeah, they're going to have a double bye.
So they don't have much to play for, I guess, except for like national seeding, kind of.
They're in the tournament. Auburn's in the tournament.
So it's just a matter of like what national seed they get, and that may have as much to do with their performance in the SEC tournament as anything. So maybe if you're a Carolina fan, hold on to hope for that 3rd straight Tennessee upset.
Yeah, because if you get that, then you're set up decently well. And you would have to play LSU in the semifinals, or depending on how things all work there.
And we can all agree that Carolina getting the double bye would be the worst case scenario.
Yes.
The absolute worst case scenario.
I don't think there's any situation now where South Carolina gets the double bye.
Oh, that's right, because Florida won last night. I keep thinking that's on the table. Because Carolina does not have they have the tiebreaker over Mississippi State, but not with Florida.
Yeah.
That's
You're locked in. Yeah. That's good.
Okay, that's good. So just 5 or 6. So what happens if Carolina gets the 5 seed? What does their road look like?
So let's say South Carolina gets the 5. I'll do some math here. Auburn wins. Mississippi State loses. Florida loses. So South Carolina would get the 5 seed, would play the second game, would play either Missouri or Georgia potentially, and then play Florida. So that's not a bad draw. That would require A&M to beat. Let's say Arkansas beats A&M.
Okay, that's feasible. That's likely.
This is a good draw too. Missouri would play Georgia, and that would make South Carolina the 5 seed. Hold on.
Do you have like a chart here or something, or are you just doing this off the top of your
website.
head? Oh, it is? Okay, great, because I'm going to use this later. Because
it's
I'm
fun
a little
to play
bit
around
confused.
with.
Yeah.
So let's say Arkansas wins, Kentucky beats Florida, LSU beats Georgia, Alabama beats Missouri, Ole Miss beats Mississippi State, Auburn beats Tennessee, South Carolina beats Vanderbilt. South Carolina would be the 5 seed based off head-to-head record with Florida. Would play either Missouri or Georgia and then play Florida in the second round if they won.
So there are these scenarios for South Carolina are mostly favorable. The only one that's not favorable is if they get the 6 seed and
go play LSU.
And Auburn beats Tennessee, in which case they would have to play LSU.
Yeah, more than likely.
And I mean, I don't know. You don't want to play LSU because they just smoked you, but LSU is just not playing well. Now, maybe it's just a bad matchup for South Carolina, and so you still want to avoid that. And they're still a talented team, and you have some time to regroup after the season ends and before you start the SEC tournament. But I mean, they're just not playing well. That South Carolina win looked like it was like, okay, maybe LSU's getting back on track. But since then, they lost at Florida. They beat A&M. Fine game, not exactly inspiring. They only scored 64 points. And then they lose to Arkansas. They've lost 6 of their last 9.
Yeah.
With the only wins coming against Missouri at home, A&M at home, and South Carolina at home.
Yep.
That might not be the worst thing in the world.
No.
Because, I mean, Florida did basically the same thing that LSU did to Carolina, except at the Colonial Life Arena earlier in the season. Is Florida really a better draw than LSU?
I think so.
Okay.
I think it's a better matchup for South Carolina.
You just have to hope that Andrew Nimhard doesn't have another 21-10.
Yeah. Florida's not that good.
Yeah, maybe not. And I guess Jermaine Couisnard wasn't the starting point guard in that game.
And he didn't play.
Yeah. Oh, that's right, because he was sick.
Yeah,
or a back injury? I thought he was sick. Was somebody sick? Did somebody miss that game with illness?
I don't think so. Maybe
Okay.
TJ Moss or something.
I don't know. I thought somebody was sick. But point is, I guess that could be a difference. So, yeah, you do want Florida. But there's only one scenario. Because you just played out 4 different scenarios. 2 where Carolina's a 5 seed, 2 where Carolina's a 6 seed. Only one of those, South Carolina, has to play LSU in the second round. Should they win on Thursday? Which obviously they have to.
You're rooting for Ole Miss and you're rooting for Tennessee.
And 21-13 does it.
Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, as definitely
21.
as what did I say?
I thought you said 20.
No, 21-13.
Yeah.
Win Thursday, win Friday, lose Saturday.
Yeah.
Carolina's not going to win the SEC tournament. Don't count on that.
Yeah, don't bank on that because there are enough teams at the top that are good.
They will have to have played less basketball than South Carolina.
Yeah.
21-13.
Feels feasible.
Yeah.
Feels very feasible.
The Mississippi State game really changes the complexion of the next week and a half.
And I think it gives some
Next
optimism
week
to the
change.
fans. Definitely gives some optimism to the fans.
How's the crowd?
All right.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess people were a little bit unenthused after losing 3 of 4 in the way that they lost.
And it's a
against Alabama.
6:30 tip on a Tuesday.
Yeah, I like the 6:30 tip
I
much
like
better
them.
than the
I
9
like it
o'clock
too.
tip, though.
I like 6:30 tips.
Yeah, I guess it's hard for people to get down there from work and
Yeah.
different places, but
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's good. That was the home finale for South Carolina. Saturday against Vanderbilt, 12:30 tip, which is nice. You just worry about them still being sleepy and having tummies full of eggs and bacon and a little groggy. But they can be groggy and still win that
They can
game.
play their B game, C game, and beat Vanderbilt.
And then it's seeding. We'll be back on Tuesday. I guess we could come back on Monday, but we'll come back on Tuesday because that's a normal schedule for us.
Yeah.
And break down
The tournament. Breakdown
all of
thing.
the seeding, actually knowing it for sure. It's amazing that so much is still up in the air with just one game left to go in conference play. But that's been part of the insanity, part of the fun, part of the frustration
South
of
Carolina's
watching SEC basketball this year.
South Carolina is either playing the second game on Thursday or the late game Thursday.
You're pulling for the second game. So the scenario where they get the 5 seed and still get to play Florida in the second round is the best case scenario because then they would get to play the second game.
For me personally, sure.
Yeah. That's what we're pulling for. We want what's best
and
for
then
Collyn.
I get to go out in Nashville. And if they win, I get to go out in Nashville.
Yeah, that's true. Get some hot chicken. Go to Bolton's.
I'm going this weekend. I'm taking my roommate with me.
Yeah.
We're going this weekend.
Because you're a good traveler to games. But go to Bolton's. Will you do that?
Yeah. Shoot me a text to make sure, but yeah.
It's a shack. We talked about this, I think.
Yeah.
Did we talk about it on the podcast?
No,
or
we
off
never
the air?
talked about it on the podcast.
Okay. For those of you that have seen House of Cards, it's kind of like Freddy's, the guy that makes Frank Barbecue. It's just one of the it's a shack. And I say that in an endearing way. So if you are someone that loves Bolton's or works at Bolton's and you're listening to this, that is not a slight. That's like the utmost compliment. But it's nondescript and you walk in and if you have a high heat tolerance, get medium. If you are a masochist, you can get one of the hotter options. But it will ruin your day in the best possible way.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. So enjoy that. I expect a full report on Tuesday when we break down the whole tournament schedule for South Carolina and I guess the rest of the SEC because why not while we're at it?
Who knows? Yeah.
And I guess whatever happens in the Vanderbilt game, we got to talk about that too. Yeah. Hopefully not much to talk about there. Follow him on Twitter, @Collyn Taylor. Read everything he writes on Gamecock Central, from his previews of the opponents to his breakdowns of what happened in the instant analysis and what we learned. And you mentioned that Mike Kotsar piece that is live right now. This is 10:36 on Thursday morning, so go read that on GamecockCentral.com. Great website. Lots of spring football coverage, lots of men's and women's basketball coverage, lots of baseball coverage. I mean, I don't know what else you need. It's all right there on GamecockCentral.com.
Hey, I'm Skippy.
@Collyn Taylor with a Y, @Pearson Fowler. Thank you all so much for listening. Don't forget to rate, review, subscribe to this podcast. You get this and other Carolina podcasts and everything else fun that we do here on the Gamecock Central Podcast Network. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next week.